mission to shed a light on the incredible journey of aspiring and inspiring individuals in the city of Kandy.
Kandy Talks is an initiative by the Kandy Global Shapers community.
That I have found to be fulfilling. Might not be the case for different individuals, but for me, with that kind of upbringing and background, it was something that I yearned for.
I hope our viewers will make use of that advice and try for something better.
So, if we are to come out of the crisis, we need to think about a few elements. First is, if we look at Sri Lanka and its industry, we've been doing the same thing over and over again, and it's okay to pivot. I've had a couple of pivots in my career and my academic life. It's okay to pivot and take a moment for yourself and take a step forward. It may or may not go right, but then you have the chance to pivot again. And that's the beauty of life.
So Heshika, I want to begin the conversation by talking a little bit about your professional journey. So you've had a very dynamic career, starting off as a business, a strategic consultant. Then you led innovative initiatives within companies as a business entrepreneur. Now you're a general manager while being part of the presidential committee that is driving our national AI policy. So how did you manage to kind of adapt to these different roles? Because obviously they are asking for different things. And how did you kind of, overcome that fear to take a risk in transitioning from one role to another?
Interesting question. So first off, I would say I'm still early on in my career. Yes, I might have done a couple of different things, but still very early on. Early to mid career is what I would say. But I've always kind of had it in me to try different things. I was born in Kandy. My parents moved to Malaysia for like about 4 years when I was really small.
Right.
I was back in Kandy, finished school in here. Then went to college in the US. So I guess that was an intrinsic part of me that always kind of wanted to do new things, different things, try new things. And that's something that I have found to be fulfilling. Might not be the case for different individuals. But for me, with that kind of upbringing and background, it was something that I yearned for. So soon after college, I was like, I've spent now 4 years in the US. I want to try something new. And then that got me into, like I said, strategy consulting in India.
India?
In Mumbai. And then there were a whole lot of people were like, hey, why are you moving to Mumbai? Why not stay back in the US? Or why not come back to Lankan? But, India's a fascinating economy, they're growing. So a part of me was like, there's a lot to learn there. So that's the second aspect. Why wanting and kind of needing something new, something interesting. I'm also keen to learn about new places, new people, new cities, because that's life experience that you might not get if you are just, staying within your comfort zone. So the third thing is that comfort zone. I always try to push myself to say, hey, am I comfortable? And if the answer at any point is yes, that means it's time to try something new, do something different. So that's the approach that I've taken towards my career. Go after newness, do what I feel is exciting. Ideally live in a new place if at all. Learn through that process, and then enjoy doing new things and asking myself, am I comfortable? Am I getting comfortable doing what I'm doing? If the answer is a resounding yes, then I'm like, okay, and what more can I do? What's new that I can kind of put my mind to? So that's the approach. Has paid off so far. It has had its ups and downs, but been so good so far. Let's see how the next few years go as well.
Well, I just want to follow that with a small question. So, sure. How is your family sort of were they supportive for this transition? Because some parents are a little, they want you to stick to something and they want to make sure that you go up the ladder and complete it. Sure. But some parents are open-minded. But how was it?
I think I've been fortunate in that respect. Maybe it required some convincing earlier on in my kind of career, especially, first thing was like, going to study abroad. That required a bit of convincing. And then choosing, okay, what kind of pathway should I take? Because for my A-levels, I did maths, etc. And eventually graduated in political science and government. So very different. But thankfully, they've been supportive. And I've also kind of been able to kind of negotiate and say, hey, this is why this career path might be interesting as opposed to the path that you might want. Look, there's been a bit of convincing along the way as well, but to be honest, they've been very supportive as well.
Interesting. I mean, very interesting. So, Heshika, you've also been the center of a lot of initiatives, not just locally, but internationally as well. But one of the most interesting one that I found was, which is very close to Kandy, was when you decided to bring TEDx, organize TEDx in Kandy. So what made you want to bring it to this city, and how was the whole experience?
So I think it was me and a bunch of my friends, so credit to them as well, kind of came up with that concept. But I think it stemmed from this fact, all of us grew up in Kandy, and I think folks here have their upbringing in Kandy as well. But something that we face is, we have good primary and secondary education. Yeah. And a lot of people go on to, good universities, both locally and internationally. Then they go on to have great careers. But something, if I would ask you, how many of them have, world-renowned careers out of Kandy, right? Even though their entire baking of the cake, like a great Trinitian who I aspire to is Lakshmi Kadiram. The cake was baked at home. A lot of the cakes are baked in Kandy, but they don't have a market to kind of, really flourish, and probably a market to eat that cake. So for me, that was a big miss. How do we really create opportunities for people to really thrive within Kandy at school? And what was missing in that discussion with our group of friends was that we felt thought leadership, initiatives, people taking, entrepreneurial efforts were limited to really make use of the greatness that is Kandy. And when I say greatness, it is about that education that I talked about, primary and secondary, that's world class. There is a world class university right around the corner. There's, good quality of living, like the weather is awesome. And I feel like the people are, genuine, and they have, interest in helping each other. So all of these factors are all factors of a good quality of life. Yet, from an economic point of view, or a development quote unquote point of view, the opportunities are less for careers. So how can you really create platforms for those who are coming out of education, those who are coming out, starting their careers, to really be able to initiate new things, be able to get the people around them and create new opportunities, and maybe create like a secondary hub that is dedicated to kind of developing Sri Lanka. We need a lot of that, not only in Kandy, Jaffna, in Galle, in other parts of Sri Lanka. And you see that in many countries that have been have gone through this journey. Yeah. You take Vietnam, you take India, who were 20, 30 years ago kind of the same level of economic development that we are. They've created cities, not just one primary city. Go to India, like Bangalore is competing against Hyderabad, it's competing against Mumbai, it's competing against Delhi, and everyone's trying to get talent. You go to Vietnam, you get Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, all of these places. Same thing can be done, maybe not to that degree. We don't want necessarily like big bustling metropolises in that sense, but you can create opportunities. And that's the thought process. It's just a small one. There are a lot of other platforms that can come into Kandy, but if the right platforms, right people take initiatives, kind of, and people have cool ideas, hopefully that can create opportunities in the future for Kandy and then for Sri Lanka as well.
Okay, so you are a global shaper and a former curator of the Kandy Hub. I guess you were kind of like the first few curators after Global Shapers was initiated within Kandy. So what made you decide to join Global Shapers when there was other initiatives that was happening in Kandy and other places?
So I joined the Global Shapers after coming back to Sri Lanka from India. And I was, like I said, I am interested in multiple things. So I was interested in kind of looking at, how can I contribute back to Kandy. And at that time, there were multiple organizations. But what I found unique about the Global Shapers was, in addition to community service, where it's mainly charity-led, like you give a donation, you'd help someone school. You did that at Shapers as well. But there was an added element, which was that of thought leadership. And what I mean by that is the Global Shapers kind of taking initiatives to drive, new thoughts, be it entrepreneurial thoughts, be it policy-related thoughts, and kind of driving that amongst the society. All positive things, right? Some might not necessarily be development related, others might be more environmental focused, really safeguarding the environment. So in addition to doing a one-time event of maybe helping, say, plant trees, which the Shapers also do, they also kind of look at how do you approach this more sustainably? How do you create kind of a domino effect? How do you maybe transfer knowledge to someone who can then inspire future generations of take it on forward. So that was the thought process, and that's why I kind of really wanted to join the Shapers. And I think that has seen life, and I'm really happy to come back, help the Global Shapers Kandy up, and see a lot of young folk kind of carrying that on forward. And even the initiative Kandy Talks, I think thought process, if I'm not mistaken, it's about really inspiring others to do good, to better themselves, and to better the community, so that everyone can kind of rise up together. So for me, Kandy required that. It was about inspiring folks from Kandy, the young talent, to create opportunities so that they could really, really thrive and do good to their community. So that's why I joined the Global Shapers. Also, it provided a forum for us to connect with hubs across the earth. So there was cross-learning that we could gain, and the exposure, especially at events like the curators meeting in Geneva or the annual meeting in Davos, which every shaper has the potential to go to. Those were also very inspiring for me, because those were places that you could learn from, talk to people, get their ideas, get their opinions, and then maybe bring that back home as well.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So since the rain stopped, we decided to come outside, and I hope this is comfortable. It's much more better. Great. So yeah, let's move to the next question then. So I want to talk a little bit about your academic journey as well. So you've been a Yale graduate in political science and government, which is not something that a lot of people can sort of enroll to if he's from Sri Lanka. So how has that influenced studying in the US and studying at Yale when it came to your leadership as well as your career?
So the first thing that I'll tackle is the fact that, yes, it might have been hard, and yes, I would acknowledge it's a prestigious university, but I think anyone should aspire to kind of get that kind of education. And it's not that hard. I think you need to get your A-levels, your SATs and stuff like that. There is a process. But I would urge anyone who's interested, if they want to study in the UK or in the US at these top-tier universities, don't shy away from the fact, and definitely do apply. So I'll tackle that first part of the question. I would definitely urge anyone who is interested in applying to the UK or US, like the prestigious schools, definitely apply. Just because you're from Kandy doesn't mean that you won't have a chance. So definitely go at it. If anyone wants any help or assistance, I'll be happy to kind of guide anyone. So definitely take that chance. And then I'll address that second part of the question in terms of how that academic experience helped me in my career and from a leadership perspective. I think the first point is that studying policy, it made me look at problems or issues in a multidimensional approach. So as opposed to say, doing a math equation where you have one solved, when you study policy, you understand that you're dealing with people. And when it comes to people, there might be different opinions, there might be different approaches. So any policy problem or solution you're kind of getting after, you need to approach it in a multitude of ways or have the patience to look at it from different angles. So that's the first thing I think our skill set that kind of helped me. The second thing is to do with any academic program at a higher level. It's not always and only about your theoretical or technical knowledge that you gain. It is about the process of learning, right? It's about, as someone once told me, it's about learning how to learn, right? Because in life, every day you will encounter something new, be it in personal life or professional life. And you will have to learn how to deal with it. So the better you are at learning how to learn, the faster you can approach and solve those problems. Even in a career, you might be, say you're an engineer, you might be building one bridge 2 years and a very different kind of bridge the next. So you need to understand and solve the problems as they come. That's the second skill, learning how to learn and getting to that solution faster. And then the third thing I would say is maybe not necessarily an academic thing, but being in a world-class academic environment with people of high caliber really helped me ground myself and build a sense of empathy. And I think empathy is, for me, one of the primary aspects I feel that's important for leadership. That you understand the people that you're leading, because like you said, what's the correlation between academia and leadership? It is about being humble and knowing that as you lead, it's not about you, but it is about the people that you're leading. It is about their development. It is about how you help them improve their careers and how you can help them really get to their goals in life. So those are the three things that I would say, which is empathy. This is the third point. The second point is learning how to learn. And then having studied policy, it's about really approaching a problem in a multitude of ways and looking at it multidimensionally.
So I want to follow it up with another question. So you mentioned a couple of skills that's quite important for you. Do you feel that it's something that is reserved for someone who is studying in the US or an undergraduate? Or do you think that even an ordinary person who doesn't follow up with a lot of education can acquire those skills? And do you think it is very important for anyone to kind of see some self-growth based on those skills?
So those are just three skills that I felt are important. There are skills that will be important. But what do you think? I mean, those are based on what I said, three skills. Do you think that it is only reserved for very few, or do you think it is a general skill that anyone can do?
I guess it's a general skill that everyone should possess, and it's something that they should kind of strive towards.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the fact that learning to learn.
Yes.
Is something that even Aristotle said, right? Once you learn, you understand that you have more to learn.
Exactly. So jumping off what you said, the policy angle, looking at a problem in multitude of ways, you don't have to study policy to do that. Interacting with friends, just being humble enough to realize that, a different person can have a different approach to the same problem, just takes a bit of humanity. The second thing, it's about learning how to learn, is something that we can inculcate all the way down from primary school, right? Teaching kids about, problem solving or approaching a problem creatively and really learning quickly. And you learn that a lot in university when you have to do your own research. So irrespective of whether you go to the world's number one ranked university or any other university, you do a tertiary education or even a secondary education the right way, you learn how to learn. But you need to really absorb that skill and be mindful that I'm learning this and I'm learning how to research. Just because you pass an exam, you might not necessarily build that skill. And the third thing, empathy. I think it's beyond education is something that you can foster yourself. There is an element that comes from your surroundings, your friends, your family, and of course the academic environment. But even if you don't have any of that background, it is something that you can be mindful about and develop yourself. So I don't think it is only reserved, like you said, for a certain group of people. Maybe because we are asked to focus on that, those elements, it helps us be driven, but others, anyone can really build that skill set as well.
I hope our viewers will make use of that advice and try for something better. So I also want to kind of divert the topic a little bit. Since you're dealing with not just the local market but international markets as well, we've been through an economic crisis and we are gradually coming out of it. What do you think? Are we making progress? Do you see any sort of growth in the coming decade or so in Sri Lanka?
It's an interesting question. I guess I'll answer it in different aspects. Firstly, we're definitely better than what we were in the height of the crisis in 2022. But I wouldn't say that by any means we are in a good space. There's definitely a lot more that can be done. The first thing is, if you look at it, we are in a really, really bad place, or at least we were. So if we are to come out of the crisis, we need to think about a few elements. First is, if you look at Sri Lanka and its industry, we've been doing the same thing over and over again. And even right now, we're doing the same thing, hoping that it will help fix the problem. But what we don't realize is if we have the same solution, that means the problem is either going to come up again or we're not going to address it. So primarily, we really need to focus on creating value in Sri Lanka. What does that mean? We need to improve our export sector. We've traditionally been focused on, the traditional exports, and we have apparel and some IT services. But we really need to bring in policy and even individual effort to expand that scope. What are the new things that we can be doing? Like, for instance, Vietnam got into apparel manufacturing after.
Yeah.
But they have transitions into much more advanced manufacturing and value creation. From apparel, they moved into, adjacent spaces, footwear, and now they are manufacturing high-tech chipsets and all of that. So we really need to focus on value creation. We also need to think creative. We have had a tourism sector, but that tourism sector is unregulated. There isn't really strong policies or programs that are driving that. How can we ensure that everyone rallies behind something like that and there is a long-term kind of plan? And that comes down to the most important thing, is having a long-term plan, identifying what are we going to do and getting the entire population behind that.
Yeah.
If you ask your general person, if you meet someone on the street and said, where do you think Sri Lanka is headed? Do you think we'll have an answer? Do you think the lay person would say like, okay, this is what our plan is.
Yeah.
This is what, our leadership is trying to do. I don't think the normal person will have one. But if we are to develop and we are to come out of the crisis, there needs to be inspirational leadership that relates to the normal person and translates the vision to the normal person so that the normal people, and like you and I, can get behind it, invest our time and energy, because we are investing in this country. If we don't have an end objective that is clear, that is in simple terms, we are all like headless chicken running all over the place. So I think that's the primary thing. And the most important thing is having a strong vision and really being able to inspire the entire population to get behind that mission. People have gone through rough times in a lot of countries, be it Germany after World War II or Japan after World War II, or the US a couple centuries before. But the key thing was, even when those places burned to the ground, the leadership that came after it had a clear definition, clear vision for the people, and the people contributed because the vision was clear, right? If someone asks you to come with them on a journey, but they're not telling you where they're going, the likelihood of you getting on board is very less.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to really get people on board that journey and tell them why it's important that they put in that effort behind that. I think that's the crucial part that's missing for Sri Lanka. We need that kind of leadership. We've seen that kind of leadership, especially in the 1960s, for instance, in Singapore, where Lee Kuan Yew, and a lot of people like equate Sri Lanka to Singapore, right? But it was Lee Kuan Yew, like, if you listen to his speeches, you can see him being inspirational towards his people and clearly defining what the next decade is going to look like, what he expects out of the people, and what the people will get in return, right? So that's what's required. And then, of course, the economic elements like expanding your basket of goods, being creative, all of that can come from the people if the vision is clearly articulated.
That was that was something. I mean, I never thought of that in that sort of a sense. That, I mean, I've always been someone who had kind of partly talked about the fact that politicians and their corruption was sort of the main contributor for this. But when you say about the vision and how people will ultimately, if it is communicated properly, how they will contribute because they know where their journey is heading, is something else. So thank you for that.
Well, that's what Sri Lanka needs, and hopefully someone will come around and really help Sri Lanka get along.
Another quick question on that is, how has the lack of entrepreneurship, creativity, I know that you just mentioned about it, but that also played some sort of a role in the economic crisis, or was it just the politicians and the lack of vision in our leadership?
I think it's a chicken and an egg kind of problem because you need both of those elements to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You need visionary, inspirational, directional leadership. At the same time, you need people who also be ready to not take the easy path out. And I feel like sometimes Sri Lanka, maybe it is the leadership that has trained us in that path as well, where they're used to getting things free, be tax concessions, to, cheap fuel, to, a lot of other things and subsidies that we're basically trained to kind of receive from, but not really invest and not know that it is only putting time, energy, and effort that will reap benefits for us in the long term. But that being said, it is definitely not solely a leadership issue. We also have to be creative. We have to be able to be put our country first. For instance, if you go to India, you see a lot of the Indians being really dedicated toward their country's journey, their country's development. When I lived there, before any movie screening at any film hall, they'll sing the national anthem.
Oh.
So they're very patriotic in that sense. A lot of countries who have really driven an agenda have been patriotic. And patriotic is being meritocratic as well. That means realizing your community, getting all of the people behind it, whatever the ethnic background, whatever the religious background, and really growing after that developmental outcome. That's required. And then people also need to be able to maybe take some sacrifices. But here's why it's important, that for the sacrifices that the people make, they need to know what would they get in return in the long run, even if it's not for them, for their children or their next generation. That vision needs to be clear, because you would invest in something only if you feel that, there would be some benefit to you or your family in the long term.
Yeah.
If that's clear, then everyone, I would say, would rally around and be creative as well in that journey. So it's a chicken and egg. Both the leaders and the people have to really get behind it. If one aspect fails, then both fails. Both fail.
As you are part of both local and international forums, what do you feel is the biggest opportunity that Sri Lanka has in the upcoming decade?
Biggest opportunity, like you said, in the upcoming decade, I'll focus on that short term. This is a personal point of view. I think India is developing at a really high rate. They have the world's highest GDP growth rate right now, and we are strategically right next to them.
Yeah.
And if you look at India's neighbors, right, you have Pakistan where they have a bit of, ideological conflict there. Then there's Bangladesh, again, might not think ideologically one-to-one. You have Nepal, but geographically, they are a bit isolated, landlocked. And then, of course, there's Bhutan and Afghanistan in the periphery, which, again, economically might not add that much of that. But Sri Lanka, ideologically, has a lot of similarities with India, with geostrategic position, which is at, right at the tip of India, poses the opportunity for us to really piggyback, get on the coattails of India, and really use India's development trajectory to also kind of for Sri Lanka's development trajectory. The sectors that might come into play are, of course, logistics and maritime related stuff, because currently the Colombo port is the largest transshipment port into India. And if you look at, the maritime lines between east and west, between Singapore and Dubai, all of that flows through, the southern coast of Russia. Yeah. That can be a extended kind of maritime location for India. But all of that, while securing our own cultural identity, while securing our own, economic interests, while securing our own national security, can be done. We just have to be thoughtful. We just have to be strategic about it and really identify those opportunities. Another sector is energy. India has a huge energy need. Sri Lanka has a large amount of, potential for energy, both, renewables, etc. That also is a big opportunity. And then services and tourism that can help India's kind of growth.
Yeah.
Are again other industries that can, really benefit. And then you take the value created out of that industries and the economic value that's created out of it, and you channel it to, say, secondary or tertiary industry that Sri Lanka wants to create for the next decade.
Yeah.
After the decade you were talking about. And that's how you secure the future.
Yeah.
So if you look at the opportunity right now, go after that opportunity, and then you create a national kind of, national wealth, and then you invest in the sectors that you really want to go after for the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And that's that vision.
Right.
And that needs to be charted out. Those are some of the industries that I feel we could really make use of.
Okay, so Kandy Talks is all about sharing the stories and exploring stories of aspiring and inspiring individuals within Kandy. So I want to know, what was it like growing up in Kandy, and what are your fondest memories about Kandy?
So yeah, I was born in Kandy. I think whoever I am, the character, the personality, all of that was due to my upbringing in Kandy. I think I love the fondest things are my time at Kreeda, the friends I made. Those are the same individuals that are some of my closest friends now. My family and immediate family were in and around Kandy. So I loved, going to our ancestral home, playing around with my cousins, going, to the ancestral home for Auradu. In addition to that, the people I've met, like I said, they're very genuine, hospitable. Those elements, I think, really molded my personality. In addition to that, I definitely love the Kandy weather. Living in Colombo now, full time. I always miss, coming to Kandy. It's more milder. Now it's a bit, of course, overcast, cloudy. But even this weather is very soothing.
Yeah.
So Kandy is always a place I find that I can come to wind down and really get some peace of mind.
Yeah.
I remember, the early mornings in Kandy, I would wake up and open my window, and you'd see the mist coming in, and that was so refreshing. Unfortunately, I think due to global warming, when I come, I open the same window at the current place, but that doesn't happen anymore. There's no mist that's coming in. So all of those elements, people, climate, the city, it's a small town. In fact, you can't even call it a city. All of those factors combined with the school, the friends, that was what made what can be kind of upbringing unique one and something that really made me who I am today.
Okay. So we are at the very end of the set of questions. But one thing that I want to ask is, so for someone who is trying to take a risk in life or in their career in a positive way, what advice would you give them, and where should they start?
So I would say it all starts with yourself, right? That's the first thing. I think it's important that we take a step back, take some time, wait a couple of hours a day, a week, a month, whatever it is for you, to really understand, what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you want to kind of achieve with life? What is it that you won't regret when you're 80? Jeff Bezos has this interesting thing when he wanted to start Amazon. He, looked forward to when he was 80, and he asked himself a question, what would he regret less? Is it starting his very risky business of Amazon, or being in his job where he was a very senior vice president? So that's important for all of us to really take a step back and evaluate, irrespective of where you are, whether you're early career, whether you've been in a role for 20 years. If you are having that thought process, just take a moment to really understand what you want to do. And it's okay to pivot. I've had a couple of pivots in my career and my academic life. It's okay to pivot and take a moment for yourself and take a step forward. It may or may not go right, but then you have the chance to pivot again. And that's the beauty of life. And that brings me to maybe my second point is don't be afraid to take risks. I know it's easy, to say it than to really, do it in practice. But the thing is, the human spirit, and most importantly, the human brain is very, capable of adapting to any scenario. I see. There's this interesting book by this Stanford neuroscientist called Live Well. It is about how your brain basically evolves every day. That means what you put into it and what you focus on is what it becomes. So there is no set way that your brain is. So say that from tomorrow you want to focus on something else, so playing piano or a different career, you put your mind to it, your brain will evolve and build that capability within you for you to succeed in that. So that's why I say, take a risk. But of course, talk to the people around you, your loved ones, get their opinion. But those are opinions only. At the end of the day, it's you who's deciding. And what we all have to realize is we are going to leave this world one day. And don't have any regrets. We only live once. Live a life that is meaningful to you. And at the end of the day, you live a life that will make you happy.
That was lovely. That was really lovely. So my final question is, Heshika, I'll put it in just a sentence. Heshika, what can we expect from you in the future?
So like I said, I'm also continuously trying to take time to understand what is it that I want to do. And that question and the answer to that question has changed at different points in my life. If you ask me what I wanted to do 5 years ago, would have been different. So right now, most important thing I would focus on is family. Because I have a daughter who's turning 1 year in a week. So making sure that she is inspired, that she lives a good life. That's important to me, and making sure that my family is in a good place. From a professional lens, I think contributing towards Sri Lanka, contributing towards people as a whole, especially from my community, that's important to me. And contributing doesn't necessarily mean charity. Maybe it's about helping be directive or providing guidance. Or there's something that me and a couple of friends are kind of building up is we have a couple of ideas that we want to putting the fray. So maybe creating entrepreneurial ventures. Those are things that I'm kind of passionate about. Still brewing, but 10 years from now, if I want to look back, I want to ensure that I have been a good father and a good person for my family, but also have taken risks in the things that I've always wanted to do, which is, like I said, a few things brewing, and not regret not taking the plunge at this moment in time. So that's what you can expect without maybe divulging too much, is really taking on some big challenges moving forward, and hopefully that those challenges will help contribute to the people around me and the people in the community and in Sri Lanka.
We all wish you all the very best for everything. So that sort of concludes this particular episode of Kandy Talks. And I want to thank Heshika for joining us here in Kandy, back in the city, traveling all the way from Colombo. It's been thoroughly interesting to have a conversation, and I think our viewers will find it very interesting and inspiring. So thank you very much again, and all the very best for your future endeavors.
Thank you, and thank you very much, you, for interviewing me, and for the Kandy Shapers for having me. And wish you guys also all the very best in this series of talks, and also on all the other projects that you guys have going. So all the very best.
Thank you very much.